Okay, so let's start with our Rose Thornbud exercise. So the Rose Thornbud exercise is, it's that method that, it's a good quick method to use for critically thinking about something and to get a good list of things that are good, things that are not so good, and what can we do about it. It is good for all kinds of things, retrospectives on an experience, on how your team works together, all kinds of things. You can use them. It's used often in Agile for retrospectives and for postmortems. A postmortem is at the end of a project, at the end of a project cycle where you go back and you say, how did this thing go? That's called a postmortem. These can also be used in a postmortem. They can be used to get feedback from users on stuff, and it's whatever. It can be an experience, it can be a game, it can be an application, it can be some kind of process. It's feedback on all kinds of things. So the benefit of the roses is that you are listing out what's working because you don't want to forget what's working. Because if you forget what's working in the middle of fixing the things that aren't working, you might inadvertently get rid of something good that is working, and you don't want to forget what's good because you don't want to replace it trying to fix what's bad, because it could get in the project lifecycle, you're in the weeds and things can get missed, things can get overlooked, things can get forgotten. And it's also good to, just from a motivation standpoint of a team working on stuff, is to, hey, we did this good thing, this works, this is good, we need to continue doing this thing. Continue doing it because it turns out maybe that's a good best practice. Continue doing it because it's a good solution for this specific game. All kinds of reasons. So you want to think about the good things. You want to note down the good things, and we'll see that because at the end of this whole series that I'm doing on platformers genre is we will go back and we will look at all of the ones that I've played, and we'll do a kind of a report on that, and I'll do that with you together so that you can see how can we make a report out of this study that we've done on platformers, so that you can learn that too, and that will again give you more experience. Especially if you participate, that will give you more experience on doing this whole, this would be called if I were doing this for work, for a project, this would be called competitive landscaping, where I go and I play existing games and I see what's good, what's working about them, what's not working about them, what do I like, what do I don't like, as a UX professional that has this design fluency on what works and what doesn't work. And you get that design fluency over time and with experience. So again, doing these things with me and me talking about them out loud will help you gain a little more fluency as you pay attention and as you watch and as you learn as we go, because I'm thinking out loud as we're doing it. So that will help you gain in fluency as well. It'll take time, of course. Fluency in anything, languages, anything takes time. And doing it for yourself and practicing it for yourself also helps with that fluency. So it's not just watching, it's also participating and gaining experience doing it is what helps build fluency. So let's get to it. And so thorns are what didn't go well, what was low point. So you want to list out those things because those are the things that you either want to address or you want to research more. So there's going to be some kind of next step. You may already have a solution for it because it could be that it missed a best practice and you just need to follow that best practice, or it could be something that you need to look further into because it could be a potential bug. It could be something that is a little more complex of an issue, and it may have been, oh, I've never seen this happen before. I've never seen anyone have this issue before. This is something we should study in a usability test or something. So that would be our bud, our next step for that. So the buds are, what opportunities do you see? How can we, if they are specific things that you can do, like best practices that can fix the thorn, then yeah, that would be a bud. But it could be following up and investigating something, adding more questions about there's a question around this thorn or a question around some kind of opportunity that I saw during this whole process that could be followed up on. And the buds are giving you a direct list of next steps. So you've got a well-defined list of what's good, what's not so good, what do we do about it? And keeping them separate is also important at this stage, and you'll see why when we do the report after the end of this, because we're going to do that together. So, okay, what went well? So, as far as let's see. So this was a relatively new game. It's not a retro game, but they made it look like a retro game. So one of the good things that they did was that they made it successfully look like a retro game, because before I looked at the date that it was released, and maybe that was just the date it was released on Steam in America. That's possible. That maybe it was... wait, who was the developer on this one? Was it Hikoteru? I think I found their website at one point. Hikoteru. See if we can find them. Hikoteru. Hikoteru. Here. Hikoteru. Yeah. Let's see. Chrome has a translator. Yeah, nope, it's 2020. So originally released in 2020, I guess. So yeah, it's a new game, so they successfully made it look retro. Because before I looked at that date, I thought it was a retro game that they just recently released over here. But it was made to be a retro game. So they did a good job of, so it's a recent game, successfully made it look and feel retro. And it has that Sunday morning cartoon feel. Even the cartoons over here in America, it has that kind of feel. The bad guys are simple, clumsy, entertaining, because you don't want, it's when you're a kid, that stuff's scary. So you want it to be more comical at that point. So they did a good job of making it feel more like a kid's cartoon, even though it's possibly adults playing it. Another good thing was that they followed those the design pattern for dialogue boxes, because they had that they had that good contrast of color, and so I'm grouping them by thought here, and you'll see that I'm doing short and incomplete sentences. That's one of the reasons I like using the post-its, is because it keeps the notes very short and concise. And again, you'll see the benefit of this when we work on the report later. But this is very good at this stage to keep the notes short and concise and record yourself. So I have the recording, because this was recording while we played, and I've got these notes. So I can go back and refer to the recording, or I can open up the game and play it again if I must. But keeping the notes to remember stuff, but keeping the notes short and concise at this point is going to help with faster reporting later. And that reporting can take on multiple different formats later. It's more efficient to keep it short now, so that you can create these different forms later. And they can be all different kinds of reports, all different kinds of summaries. Keeping it short now helps you easily scan the info to see your patterns. And we'll see that when I do the report at the end of this. That'll be a special stream that we do where we do that report. And look at the trends, look at the patterns. And this is very beneficial to use this short, concise way of writing so that it's more efficient later. It's all about streamlining it for faster synthesis. So they had a good contrast of color. They had a clear differentiation from the background, from the game environment, so you could clearly see it. And it had those design patterns, like the character that was speaking and highlighted, and the like with emotion on their face. That is a common thing in dialogue boxes that we're seeing across games, not just platformers, but that's the thing, a pattern that we're seeing across games. So that would be a pattern that we want to pay attention to. And there was another one. There was that little indicator that it's time to progress, manual progress the dialogue. That little triangle that we saw that was blinking. And the fact that they had manual progress of dialogue. That was also good. And what else was good? Let's see. The initial onboarding taught you the basics. It's a separate thing. What simple type teaches basics of the interactions. And again, thinking about the limitations of the technology that they're designing this to replicate is the old 2D platformers. There was only so much you could do with them, and you had to design within those limitations. And you would see in that pattern that they had so that's that's actually a good thing. Design, like creative design within the tech limitations of the thing they were emulating. It's like 2D pixel game. 2D retro pixel game. It has a different best practice than, say, a 3D game or a VR game. There's going to be different best practices because of the limitations of that technology. And so within that, that's a separate thing, really. It loaded off of that. So it is a best practice when you're teaching someone onboarding, and I just released a video on that you can check out on YouTube. It is in the About section, or here it is in chat. You can check it out on my YouTube channel, Ninja Robot Studio LLC, if you have to search it. But the link's in the chat, and if you're watching this later on demand, then you'll already have it. Have my YouTube channel. But I have the, and I will try to include it in the show notes. I'm making a note. We are onboarding. Add to the show notes. But so this was them using creativity within their limits. So we talked earlier about UX, this misconception that it will restrict creativity. If you can use creativity and use within the tech limitations, you can use creativity within UX limitations as well. It makes for a more interesting experience. And so one of the best practices for onboarding is to show them, not just tell them. Show them and let them practice. So if you remember in the game, we had it, let's see if there's a picture in here. There's a community area. Is there a community area? Community hub for Kokoro Clover? Here, like right here, you'll see they have this screenshot or video of it, maybe, where it's showing and telling. So even within a 2D pixel platformer, you can still show and tell. They've got the controller, they've got the instructions, and they've got a picture of you doing it. And so this was designed within the limitations. But one of the things is that people have just taken this best practice from the 2D platformers and they've just plopped it into every other game. But thinking about not only the limitations, but also the benefits of the different platforms, there could be better and different ways of doing this in those different platforms. So this, I would not suggest this being how you teach someone to do something in XR, for example, because you have so many more options available to you in XR for how to teach someone how to do something. I would say take advantage of the platform. Don't just continue doing something the way it's always been done without thinking about why it was always done that way. This goes back to understanding why and understanding the tech limitations and the concepts behind the why. So you want to understand why so that when you get to a new platform, get to new technology, you can take that why and translate it into something even cooler in this newer technology. But I see a lot of people just doing this same solution. And one of the reasons they do the same solution, maybe because that's the way it's always been done. Sometimes they do it because they don't think that they have the time or the budget to do anything better. And sometimes I don't know all the reasons why, and maybe it's a development issue, and they just don't think about it because it's always been done that way. But you have all this opportunity to think of new ways to do things because but if you understand the why behind it, the why behind why was it designed this way in the first place, you'll be able to translate that better into something better in XR. So it was within the technical limitations of the time. Show, don't, just tell is best practice. So in that time frame, all you could do was have the picture, but they could have done a little bit more than that, actually. Maybe. Again, I'm not really sure the limitations of these screens, of these screens back then, because I haven't developed one of these. Maybe I should, just to see. Do a tutorial and see for myself. That's a benefit. I just need to do it. Time, all that is not on my side. But something I could do at some point out of curiosity to see, could there have been something that could have been better? Don't know, because I'm not a developer. And that's why it would be beneficial for you to understand as much about the development as you can, or at least what's what the capabilities are of the different technologies and different platforms. I don't know anything about the Retro 2D because I hadn't designed for it, but maybe at some point it would be good to know that, because maybe some point, but I'm not going to spend all my time learning Retro when I need to be learning XR. But anyway, off topic. Show don't tell. So they're giving you pictures, they're a series of pictures to show you, because they couldn't, I'm assuming they couldn't animate this part. Maybe they could, but it looks like they couldn't. So then, since they couldn't, they gave you a series of pictures to show you what's happening. And along with the buttons, and those are cross-platform. I need to talk about cross-platform. Always talking about cross-platform. Cross-platform design. Take advantage of the platform you're designing on. Don't just lift and shift. And make sure that your onboarding matches the platform or the controller that they're actually using. So there are ways to support that. That's a best practice. That is a best practice. Okay, so was there anything else? Oh, I did like the fact that I could ability to skip around chapters. Because this let me skip the boss fight. And continue story. And I'll make a connection on that in a minute. So one of the Thorns. So again, the Thorns, what didn't go so well? What was the low point? And if you're in chat and you want to participate in this, are there any, or in YouTube later, what are some other roses? What are some other things that you saw that were good that I missed here? Because again, I'm going off memory. If you were doing this professionally for an analysis, you would just take notes while you're doing. Because that'll help you with this later. You would just take more notes than what I did. And I didn't because I was talking to you. But if I were doing this professionally for a project, I would be taking notes while I play. And probably taking clips or something, or making note of the time so that I could go back and get a clip later for it. But, and if you're watching, what are some Thorns? What were some things that didn't go so well? One of the things that started out right away was the problem with the video showing immediately. The cutscene, the intro cutscene started playing immediately on launch in Japanese. And like the first time I ever opened up the game, it was in Japanese. I hadn't added the English option yet. So it was in Japanese. Not native language. Not a native speaker, not a native reader. So I ended up missing. So yeah, I need this to be in present tense because it's the current state thing. I keep forgetting to do this. I do this because this is the current state of the game. It's not a past tense thing. that's current state. Okay, I do that because it's the present tense and I want to remind myself this is the current state of it. And this is good for reports and stuff when you're doing later, when you're communicating with your team issues. It's good to say these things in like current state, just so that it's a subconscious thing. I end up missing the entire intro. So another good thing was the internationalization. I'll just make that simpler. Languages are listed in that language. For example, English is in English. Japanese is in Japanese. And do I have the option to do that on here? Easier on the Mac. Let's see if I can do that here. Not working here. Let me see. I don't have that option set up. I'm gonna have to figure out that keyboard option. Wait, here it is. There we go. Now I have to get it back to English. Okay, English is in English, Japanese is in Japanese. That is a good internationalization best practice. Oh, but it wasn't in this kanji, it was in their other hiragana, which is the alphabet that children learn first, that you learn first, even if you're like learning it as a second language. Hiragana is what you learn first, and then as you progress, you learn the kanji. That's the kanji. It just automatically translated it to the kanji because it's in, that's how the keyboard works, Japanese keyboard. I can turn that off somehow, but I don't want to deal with it right now. So I end up missing the entire intro. And another thing was with Thorn. The subtitles, the English subtitles. Were too wide, the body copy. So that takes longer to scan. Which is definitely an issue when you're not letting people manually progress. So that was another Thorn. Auto progress. The opening, and this is very, very common in games. It auto progresses. Very common Thorn for in-game is you don't want this in VR. And again, that is because they could be still situating their headset. They could be adjusting their sound. They could be still adjusting their volume. Controllers, they could be distracted by any number of things. So you want to give them the power to start it themselves. And that is not by launching the game. That is by pushing a button once the game is launched. Say, okay, now I'm ready. Because they could still be getting, there could be some kind of weird technical issues where where the game is facing, getting them situated in physical versus virtual space, basically, is what we're talking about here. You want to give them the time to do that. And you don't know, you can't just assume that as soon as they open the game that they're ready. Give them the ability to start that for themselves, especially in VR. Because they could miss something important to that you consider important to the game by auto-starting it for them and auto-progressing for them. Especially don't auto-progress. Just let them manually progress. Give them the option. And that is a very common thorn that I've come across in almost every game. I think every game. I'm not even sure. I'd have to go back and check. Seems to be a very common thing. So, opening scene auto progresses. So, end up missing the entire intro. Same thing. I remembered another rose, but then forgot it again. What is another thorn? Can y'all think of any thorns? If you're watching this later, what are some other thorns? Oh, the controllers. This is another very common thing. Controller options. Limited. So, and that then resulted in how to mentally translate controller buttons for my controller because it's different. And yes, in the description, there's a very, very, very small line that said, better on the keyboard. Again, it's around flexibility. You want to design for flexibility in your game for many reasons. One of them is I play a lot of PC games, but I am a console gamer at heart. Again, because I have a hard time with the keyboard for multiple reasons. I have small hands, so things that are easy for normal-sized adults are going to be more difficult for me because my hands are too small to make that really convoluted reach across my keyboard. And that, again, comes down to what is your design of your physical workload is going to be more for me because I'm smaller and kids are smaller. I'm the size of a kid. Physically, my hands, everything. I'm the size of a kid, so I have the problems kids do as far as physical workload goes. Kids are actually bigger than me. A lot of kids are bigger than me nowadays. So I had to mentally translate the controller buttons for different controllers. And so that means misclicks and slower response. I don't know. I think you just need to learn how to spell that word, Microsoft. Is that how you would spell misclick? I'm gonna add it. Wait. I don't know. Anyway. Results in misclicks and slower response time. And then another, let's see. During the game, because at the beginning it was not manually progressing. Initial onboarding. Let's see, creative design, ability to skip chapters, language is listed in their language. see. Is this big enough for y'all to see? Because I've got it zoomed out. I can see it, but I don't know about y'all. So that's the kind of feedback I also want is, can you even see what I'm typing? I need to zoom out so I can see what all's listed quickly, but so I'm thinking the learning curve. Okay, so the boss fight. So the tutorial teaches basics for handling the normal forest monsters. Okay? But not prepared. That doesn't prepare for a boss fight. This metal boss. Zero preparation. So there is a sudden cliff, like in difficulty. Not a curve. Not a curve. It's cliff. Where was that? Let's see. Yeah. Those are connected. And that's connected. Okay. It's not a learning curve, it's a cliff. Not a difficulty curve. Cliff. And that's one of the pillars we talked about, is the flow of the game. The game flow. So all of a sudden you're in this boss fight that is going to take a ton of effort to figure out. Doesn't teach, like, it doesn't teach the through trial and error. So it doesn't teach it didn't even teach, I didn't even see that. I didn't even see it. How to switch, or that you can switch your spirits for different benefits. Didn't even show me that. I found it. And so you have to figure out how to beat the boss through trial and error, and I don't have the patience for that, because there are many other games out there that I don't have to do that with, that I could be playing instead, or I could be working on something else altogether. But the fact that they let you skip the boss fight and continue the story kept me from stopping altogether. I mean, I stopped altogether this time because time. But I would have continued playing if I had time, because I could skip the boss fight. Okay, so now that's enough. Are there any other thorns? Were there any other big thorns that I can't think about? It's a relatively simple game. Fun game. I didn't even mess with the challenges or anything. Maybe that would have helped. Don't know. So now Now, buds are what do we do about the thorns? What opportunities do we see? So this one is the best practice for BR, especially is give the start with manual progression. Give the option to auto progress in context. So within that, you should be able to skip, you should be able to auto progress. That is best practice. And especially for VR, for XR, for all the reasons I've already mentioned. And this one is also the same solution there. And on here, keep body copy narrow, and that's about and I don't know what that translates to in centimeters or meters for Unity, but it is, or in the Unity UI though, I can't remember if it's in centimeters or pixels, but it's about 600 to 800. This is the best practice for the web. 600 to 800 pixels wide for easy scannability. And this one's obvious, is give more flexibility in controller options. Okay. And then consider ways to prepare players for complicated boss fights. Like smooth out the difficulty curve and the learning curve. Add this to the tutorial. These are next steps. So, and then there was something else. What was it? I can't think of it right now. Thought there was something else. Well, I mean, I guess I'm going back to this whole ability to skip the chapter, to continue the story. I like that they did that, actually, because it keeps you from rage quitting the game if you don't want to deal with having to figure out how to beat the boss. That's good. That gives you more flexibility, gives more people the ability to play the game. So these buds then, the green ones, are... So see here, by doing it this way, you have a very clear list. And you've got the connectors are benefiting you by letting you cross-reference back to thoughts. So very clear list. These are the good things. We like these things. We don't want to change these things. These are the things we want to change. These are the things that need to be fixed in some way. And then the buds are, these are our next steps in fixing these things. Some of these things will require research. Some of these things will require simple design changes. Some of these things, well, seemingly simple. Seemingly simple. Because the translation of a different language sometimes uses more words. So that might be a little more than simple. Might be a little more work than seems to fix. This is a best practice, so do that. And this is going to take some effort to add that tutorial, but worth it. Unless they're just doing the fun little platformer stuff, then fine. They don't need to learn that part. But they do if they're wanting to do challenges or boss fights. So at least let them learn it without having to dig around and accidentally find it. Okay, so then how do we... So you've got your clear list here of each of these things, and you've got your clear defined list of next steps. This is why we break it out this way, because some people will mix up the thorns and the buds quite often, and you don't want that. You want them to be very clear. This is the thing that's a problem, and this is how we're going to pursue that thing. Not necessarily that you have a prescriptive bud, but it's a next step for how to get to the solution of the thing that you're wanting to work on.